What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video on the Fearless Nick YouTube channel, and in today's video I'll be going through my AFL 2023 round 13 tips and predictions, and obviously as well as that, like we always do, I'm going to be going back over my round 12 tips from last week and seeing how I went. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to leave a like, share and subscribe. That'd be very much appreciated. I'm well on the road now to 500 subs and I'm trying to get there as soon as possible. So yeah, a like and sub would be very much appreciated. It really helps the channel out a lot. Also remember to join my tipping comp. It will be down below in the link in the description and also be in the pinned comment. If you want a chance to win a shout out, maybe even a sub, the winner of my tipping comp at the end of the year will win a shout out and a sub if they have a channel, that is, from myself. So if you want a chance to win that, then go down below and hit the link in the description. But anyways, without any further ado, let's get straight on reviewing my round 12 tips from last week. So looking back on my round 12 tips from last week, I got a pretty good score of 6 out of 7. For round number 12. Obviously, it wasn't a full 9-game round like we often see. It was, of course, because of the byes. 4 teams had the bye last week, so there were only 7 games in total last week. So 6 out of 7, definitely taking that. We'll quickly go back over the games from last week, starting off on the Friday night. It was between Melbourne and Carlton, and I did tip Melbourne in this one by 19 points, and they got up by 17 points. So yeah, a pretty spot-on tip there from myself. Got that tip correct. And then moving over now to the Saturday matches, I tipped Port Adelaide to beat Hawthorn. It was a pretty high-scoring match, to be honest. Port Adelaide scoring 151 points. I think they scored 100 in the first half, so GG to Port Adelaide. That was bloody impressive. But yeah, got that tip correct there. Port Adelaide getting up over Hawthorn. And then moving over now to Optus Stadium, I tipped Collingwood to beat West Coast. No problems there. Collingwood were easily going to win that match. They were always going to win that match, and they were never going to lose that match, albeit West Coast actually did put up a somewhat respectable fight, even though the scoreboard doesn't show that. At one point in the second or third quarter, West Coast were actually in the game, believe it or not. And then moving over now to Marvel Stadium, I tipped the Bulldogs to beat Geelong, and Geelong, I'd arguably say, in a bit of an upset. Got up by 22 points. I don't know how many people would have predicted this one. Comment down below if you got this one right. I certainly didn't. I gave Geelong a sniff, but I just thought with their injuries it was just going to be too much. But that didn't happen, and fair play to Geelong. Despite all their injuries, they still put out a really, really good effort against a pretty good Bulldogs side. So yeah, Geelong got the job done there over the Bulldogs, so got that tip incorrect. And moving down now to TIO Stadium in Darwin, I tipped Gold Coast to beat Adelaide. Probably one of my better tips for the entire year. I think this was a bit of an upset. I don't know how many people were tipping Gold Coast to win this. I think there were a few people tipping Adelaide. But this is definitely, like I said, one of my better tips for the year. So yeah, got that tip correct there. And then moving down now to the Sunday matches. These were probably the best 2 matches of the entire round, to be honest. We had Richmond and GWS. Obviously, as a Tigers fan, I went absolutely crazy when Marlon Pickett kicked that goal at the end there to potentially keep our season alive, only just. But nonetheless, it does give us a big chance of not finishing in the bottom 4 now. So I'll definitely take that win as a Tigers fan. Much needed. And it was a great game, to be honest. Fair play to GWS. They were phenomenal. But ultimately, Richmond were just the better side in the end. And Marlon Pickett coming in clutch with that clutch goal. Yeah, definitely keeping us out of that bottom 4 race at the moment. Moving down now to Marvel Stadium for arguably just as good, if not a better match than the GWS and Richmond game. It was Essendon v North Melbourne. Who would have thought? This would have been a brilliant game. I did say last week if North Melbourne turned it on, it could be a really good contest, and that's exactly what they did. North Melbourne, apart from the first quarter, they looked very, very good, to be honest. And like GWS, were a bit unlucky not to get the win ultimately, but ultimately Essendon were just the much stronger side on the day, and they just got over the line there, Essendon. I think, again, they kicked a goal in like the final 2 minutes or something like that. to give them the lead, and ultimately North couldn't quite keep up with them. So yeah, got that tip correct there as well. So like I said, brings me to a total of 6 out of 7. Like I said, pretty solid score. I'll definitely take it. Yeah, those were my round 12 tips from last week. Now let's move on to my round 13 tips for this week. Alrighty, so here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Round number 13. The second week of the bye rounds for season 2023. The first game of the round is between Sydney and St Kilda at 7:10 bounce down time on the Thursday night at the SCG. St Kilda, geez, if they win this, then who knows, the sky's the limit in 2023. They could definitely push themselves into maybe even a top 4 position come the end of the year if they do manage to pinch this game. However, Sydney are starting to come back into some good form now. They've pinched their last 2 games against North Melbourne, pretty luckily, but nonetheless they did get the win there. And then they beat Carlton somewhat convincingly as well. So, yeah, the Swans coming back into good form here. And obviously it is Buddy Franklin's 350th game in this match. So, obviously the Swans will want to put in a good performance for the big Budwa on the Thursday night in this game. So, but I'm not going to lie, I do like the Swans in this matchup just because, it is at the SCG. The Saints have had a pretty rotten record, to be honest, at the SCG. The Swans, I think, have beaten them the last 7 or 8 times at that ground. But yeah, I think it'll be a good contest, but I think I'm going to tip the Swans to beat the Saints on the Thursday night. So I think the Swans will get up in this one. I think it'll be a good contest, though, to be honest. I'm tipping Sydney to win this one in a close game. I'm tipping the Swans to win this one by 5 points. Moving down now to Marvel Stadium, we've got the Bulldogs taking on Port Adelaide. Huge top 8 clash this one is. The Bulldogs obviously coming off 2 pretty disappointing losses, if I'm going to be honest. They really bottled it against Geelong last week. They were in prime position to really kick away and get a nice lead on the Cats last week, but they just couldn't convert, and ultimately Geelong put them to the sword, especially in that last quarter. Whereas Port Adelaide, 9 wins in a row, and if they beat the Bulldogs here in this match, it will be 10 in a row for Port Adelaide, which is almost unbelievable. They truly are the Collingwood of this year, Port Adelaide, if they win 10 or 11 in a row like Collingwood did last year. However, in saying that, I think this will actually be a really good sort of arm wrestle, I think. The Bulldogs will be pretty desperate to get a win to lock up their top 8 spot and really secure themselves in the finals race this year. The Dogs, otherwise, if they drop this game, questions might start being asked of the Bulldogs a little bit here. I think this will be a really good game, but I think because it's at Marvel Stadium, I think this actually plays into Port Adelaide's hands, that it's at Marvel Stadium, because obviously we saw last time Port Adelaide played at Marvel Stadium, they came up against the red hot Saints and they actually beat the Saints. So yeah, I think the Bulldogs are definitely a shot. Again, I just think Port Adelaide are just going to be too strong. I'm going to be tipping Port Adelaide to win this game here. I just think they'll be the stronger side on the night, and the Bulldogs will be plucky and they'll have an arm wrestle all night, but I think Port Adelaide will get the job done ultimately. I think Port Adelaide win this one here by 15 points. Moving down now to the MCG, and we've got Hawthorn taking on Brisbane. Not going to lie, Hawthorn, as of late, have actually been very good when they've come up against Brisbane. Obviously, last week, they pretty much got embarrassed in that first half by a pretty good Port Adelaide side. Albeit, it was at the Adelaide Oval, and Port Adelaide are very hard to play there. But I think it just shows us that Hawthorn are just a young side and they're going to take time to develop under Sam Mitchell, albeit there has been some severe progress made so far in season 2023. Obviously, the Lions did have the bye last week, so they will probably, you'd hope, be fresh for this game here against the Hawks. And I think if Brisbane want to be taken seriously this year, they've got to put Hawthorn away here. It's at the MCG, so I could see Hawthorn putting up a fight, but I think you'd have to go Brisbane in this one. I think you'd be a brave man to tip Hawthorn, but I've seen crazier things happen, to be honest. So I don't blame you if you go for Hawthorn in this matchup, but I think Brisbane should put Hawthorn away in this match and really bring Hawthorn down to reality a little bit. So yeah, Brisbane I think will win this one here by 20 points. Moving over now to the Adelaide Oval, and do we need to talk about this? I don't think we do. Adelaide are winning this every day of the flipping week. The Crows at Adelaide Oval, it should not be understated. We already know how good Adelaide are at the Adelaide Oval this year. Albeit they are a shell of themselves when they play away from the Adelaide Oval, but when they're at Adelaide Oval, very few can beat them. So far, only 2 sides have manufactured a win at Adelaide Oval against the Crows this year. Yeah, the Crows, they'll get a bit of a percentage booster here. Not really much to say, they're just the better side. The Crows win this one here by 52 points. Moving over now to Optus Stadium, we've got Freo taking on Richmond. Pretty interesting game, this one. From all reports that I've heard, it might be raining in this match. So, albeit both sides are pretty crap in the wet, to be honest. So I'm not sure that really plays into Richmond's hands too much. I know Freo don't really have a great record playing in the wet either. But yeah, both these sides here trying to stay in the hunt for the finals. Obviously, Freo are definitely in the hunt. Richmond trying to stay in the hunt. Freo trying to climb into the top 8. Look, it's at Optus Stadium, so I don't really have any confidence that Richmond are going to get the job done here. But being a loyal fan, I have to tip Richmond. I don't really want to be honest. I really want to tip Freo because I feel like they should win easily, but something's telling me it's going to be a bit of a close game. You know, I don't think Richmond will win. I'm hopeful I'm wrong about that, but I don't think Richmond will win this match. Either way, I think the Dockers will win this match, although I have to tip Richmond because I'm a Richmond fan. So, yeah, I'm optimistic that we can put in a good effort, but I just think the Dockers will be too strong here. And Freo will win this one here by, let's go, 16 points. Moving down now to Blundstone Arena, and we've got a very interesting game this one. We've got North Melbourne taking on GWS. Now, both these sides last week were pretty unlucky not to get the win, if I'm going to be completely honest. North Melbourne went down, obviously, in the final 2 minutes to Essendon last week, but really put in a good effort, the Kangas. They were really impressive, really gallant, and really plucky. Definitely something we haven't said about North Melbourne for quite a while, so it was good to see them actually put in a half-decent effort against a much stronger side, obviously, in Essendon. But yeah, it was good to see that effort from North Melbourne. And the same can be really said for the Giants. I mean, they arguably almost could have won that match against Richmond. I think they got in front in the final minute and a half towards the end of that game before, obviously Richmond, pegged it back again. But I think I'm going to go the Giants to win this match. I don't know. North Melbourne at Blundstone as well in Tasmania. I think this will be very interesting to see who wins this match. It could be a real arm wrestle, like I said, and actually a really good contest. North Melbourne do play better down at Tassie, but I think GWS are the better side of the two, so I think it'd be pretty safe to tip GWS here. But yeah, the Giants, I think, will win this match here. It's a bit of an arm wrestle, but the Giants will win this one by 14 points. Moving down now to the MCG, and we've got Carlton taking on Essendon. Jeez, Carlton, they are in all sorts at the moment, the Blues. They are absolutely in all sorts. They just can't buy a win at the moment, the Blues. They're really just hurting. Like, ever since the Adelaide loss, they have never really been the same, to be honest. Yeah, they are really desperate here, the Blues, for a win, to be honest. Otherwise, I hate to say it, but Vossi's job might be on the block here because Essendon as well, they got a good win ultimately against a pretty gallant North Melbourne side last week. So they'll want to, back that up with a good win here over Carlton. But something's telling me that Carlton will win. And I don't know why. The last few times Carlton have played Essendon, I think the Blues have won the last 3 times, I think. I remember 2020, they won by a point. In 2021, even when Essendon made finals, the Blues beat them. In 2022 as well, last year, the Blues beat them. So, for some reason, Carlton just seemed to beat Essendon, and they're almost Essendon's bogey side, the Blues. So, I know it's very risky tipping Carlton because you don't know which Carlton side's going to show up. And I think if Carlton lose this game, then like I said, Michael Voss's job could be on the chopping block. But this could be the last time I ever do this if Carlton lose. But I'm going to tip Carlton. I've tipped Carlton. I know Essendon fans are going to hate me for that, but and I think the Blues, they'll win this game here over Essendon in a very close and exciting match. The Blues will win this one by 9 points. And the final game of the round, it's obviously the biggest match of the round probably, and probably one of the biggest games of the season, to be honest. It's obviously the King's birthday clash on the Monday. It is between Melbourne and Collingwood. Huge game this one is. Obviously, these two sides are battling it out. Obviously, this is a huge top 4 clash, to be honest. Melbourne haven't been in great form as of late. They scraped over Carlton, but it wasn't really convincing, to be honest. The D's didn't look too great in that match. It wasn't a great game overall, but the D's just did what they needed to do, got the win. But Collingwood have been consistently putting teams away, whether they're around their level or towards the bottom of the ladder. They've consistently put teams away and to the sword. And right now, they just do not look like losing, Collingwood, to be honest. They are on an absolute roll. But again, similar to how Carlton have consistently beaten Essendon, Collingwood have consistently beaten Melbourne over the last few years. 2021, even when Melbourne won the flag in 2021, Collingwood still beat them that year. And obviously in 2022, Collingwood beat Melbourne twice. So I really do want to see Collingwood lose, and I do like Melbourne, so I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of hoping Melbourne win. Oh, geez, it's really hard to go past Collingwood though right now. Like, I can't really make a huge statement as to why Melbourne would win this match, other than maybe Clayton Oliver's in and Jordan De Goey's out for Collingwood. So those are two massive ins and outs for these two sides. I think you have to tip Collingwood. Here. Look, I think, again, it could be one of the games of the season, but I can't see Melbourne winning. I'm sorry, I just can't see Melbourne winning, especially considering Collingwood are in some absolute cracking form over the last few weeks. Obviously, they've lost one game for the entire year, for goodness sake, so you can't really tip against them. I think I'm going to tip Collingwood in this one to win this one by 3 points. Those were my round 13 tips for the 2023 AFL season. Let's quickly go back over them. I've tipped Collingwood to beat Melbourne. I've tipped Carlton to beat Essendon. I've tipped GWS to beat North Melbourne. I've tipped Richmond to beat Freo. I've tipped Adelaide to beat West Coast. I've tipped Brisbane to beat Hawthorn. I've tipped Port Adelaide to beat the Bulldogs. And on the Thursday night, the first game of the round, I've tipped Sydney to beat St Kilda by 5 points. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen. This is my tipping comp. If you do want to join it, like I said, link will be down below in the description and the pinned comment. So this is my tipping comp, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to everyone here, as always. Currently leading the Fearless Nick comp after 12 rounds. We've got Marie T, who is really the favourite to win it now, if I'm going to be completely honest. Currently 4 tips in front of Ben P, who's climbed up to second, actually. So he had a pretty good week. In third spot, we've got Max, who's dropped 1 spot. I think he was second last week, so he has dropped 1 spot there in the tipping comp. We've got Darcy T in fourth, who's also on 71 tips, same as Max. We've got Shannon in 5th, who got a 4 this week and is on 70 correct tips. We've got Shilos in 6th, who got a 5 this week and is on 68 correct tips. We've got Hugo, who's climbed up. So shout out to you, Hugo. You've done well there, mate. He's currently in 7th. Got a 7 this week, so 7 out of 7. He's currently on 67 correct tips for the year, currently in 7th. We've got Claudia in 8th, who got a 6 this week and is on 67 correct tips. We've got Christian in 9th, who got a 5 this week and is on 67 correct tips. We've got Cooper L in 10th, who got a 4 this week and is on 66 correct tips. I'm finally off the bottom again. Obviously, if you saw my video last week, I was actually in last. So, a good week this week has finally gotten me off the bottom. I'm currently in 11th. Like I said, I got a 6, and I'm on 65 correct tips for the year. I've overtaken Samuel D and Rick H. Samuel D is in 12 on 5. I got a 5 correct tips this week, and he's on 64 correct tips for the year. And we've got Rick H, who's currently in last, and is on 64 correct tips as well for the year. But due to the margin, I think, he is currently in last. So unfortunately, Rick, you are in last at the moment, mate. But hopefully, like I said, you can bounce back later on in the season. But yeah, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those were my round 13 tips, and that is my comp ladder after 13 rounds. Remember, if you want to join the tipping comp, link will be down below in the description and the pinned comment. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Those were my round 13 tips for the 2023 AFL season. Remember, as always, remember to comment down below your tips and predictions for this round. I'd really like to know your fellas' thoughts on this round. So yeah, comment down below your tips for this week down below in the comments. Remember to join my tipping comp. Link will be down below in the description, like I've said, and it'll also be in the pinned comment, as well as the code to join as well. So make sure you go join that if you want a chance to win a shout out and maybe even a sub. Also remember to leave a like, share, and subscribe if you did go on to enjoy today's video. It would really, really mean heaps. Thank you so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you in my next video. Cheers!